politicians. They've had me to their homes. They've introduced me to their children. I've become their best friends in many instances. They've asked for my endorsement, and they always wanted my money. And even called me really a dear, dear friend. But then, suddenly, decided when I ran for president as a Republican that I've always been a no-good, rotten, disgusting scoundrel. And they totally forgot about me. In my former life, I was an insider. I knew these false attacks would come.
The president's been so unfairly attacked in the media.
I can feel it coming in the air tonight. Oh,
I knew this day would arrive. It's only a question of when.
And I've been waiting for this moment for all my life. Oh Lord,
Nobody knows the system better than me.
well, if you told me you were drowning, I would not lend a hand.
Now I'm being punished for leaving
I've seen your face before, my friend,
the special club.
but I don't know if you know who I am.
I'm a wartime president. This is a war.
Oh, well, I was there and I saw what you did.
I was a very
I
consequential
saw
president.
it with my own two eyes.
Maybe even more so this time.
You can wipe off that grin. I know where you've been. It's all been a pack of lies.
I am your justice.
I can feel it coming in the air tonight.
I am your voice.
Oh Lord,
I am your retribution.
and I've been waiting for this moment for all my life. Oh Lord, well I remember, don't worry.
My first term, I disrupted all of it. Oh, did I disrupt?
How could I ever forget? It's the first time,
That was called major disruption.
the last time we ever met. But I know the reason why you keep your silence up. No, you don't fool me,
I will fight for you.
'cause the hurt doesn't show, but the pain still grows. It's no stranger to you and
And
me.
I will win for you.
I've been waiting for this moment for all my life. Oh Lord, I can feel it coming in the air tonight. Oh Lord, and I've been waiting for this moment for all my life.
We won. The operation's over.
Whoops. Whoopsie daisy. I got sidetracked. My wife called me while I was in the middle of that. So, oh, well, great, folks. Congratulations. You made it through till tonight. Made it through another day. And then Australia, you are starting a new day. Every day, we just click off new ones. And you know what it seems like? Because it is. time has accelerated so much because time is a perception in the way you perceive it. And as your frequency increases, so does your perception of time. So, with that, we're going to pray and we're going to get started. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for today. Lord, I just ask that you continually show your glory, show your mercy, and show your hand of those things that you're doing and those things that are seen and unseen, and that we thank you for it. Lord, we know that you have a plan, and we thank you for allowing us to just participate in what you're doing for the salvation of humanity, this world, and all that are on it. Father, we thank you for it. Lord, we pray right now for our military, for our leaders, for President Donald Trump, and that your hand continually guides them every day through all that they do. It's important that you are the one that controls and walks and guides their steps. Father, we thank you for it. Lord, we ask for a hedge of protection around this call, hedge of protection around everybody that's listening to it. And Father, we just thank you and we praise you for everything that you're doing, the hardships that we're going through, the good times that are ahead of us, and all that is all part of your plan. And we thank you for it. Thank you for it in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
All right. So I want to welcome you. We are in the end game, and I am Captain Kyle. We have Lieutenant Colonel Riccardo Bosi and our wonderful Kelly. And with that, we have a great show for you tonight. Something's really important. It's a document that we're going to go through, and it lays out a vision, because a people without a vision perish. That's what the word says specifically. And so we are going to talk about that vision. And we have a little slideshow. Lieutenant Colonel is going to be the one that presents it, and we're going to just let him do his thing. But, you know, the national strategy, financial strategy of our country, basically that document scared the living bejesus out of everybody that has been a part of the colonial control of our financial system and our trade agreements. And it pretty much gives a finger to everyone that is trying to manipulate or control our sovereignty individually, because that's what it's about, individual sovereignty and about a direction. And that's what Lieutenant Colonel is going to speak about tonight. And I think it's a great show. It's going to be awesome. And with that, how you doing, sir?
Absolutely outstanding. Hey, Kelly, how are we doing? Good morning, good evening, everyone around the planet. We're in great shape in Oz. I said some time ago that they said, what's going to happen by Christmas? And I said, it'll be good for some and not so good for others. And it's happening that way down here. We've got pedophiles being arrested. We've got police being revealed. It's bad for the bad guys and good for us. Good in the sense that the truth is coming out. A lot of pain to come, we know that. But man, oh man, it's now coming up to Christmas, and the dominoes are falling thick and fast down here.
Amen. And you know, the thing is that we're getting so close to the beginnings of so many perp walks and people actually being held accountable for everything that we've been talking about for years. And it is so close. I mean, we are at the doorstep, the threshold of everything changing. And you know how fast things can change instantaneously. It's like, think about this. And we know how the setup of 9/11 and what it was, and we're not going to talk about that. But just think how fast, within 3 hours, everything in the world changed. 3 hours. So don't think that things can't all of a sudden just flip a script and all of a sudden everything is on its head, because that's how fast everything happens. And now, with it happening in the way that it is, it's going to be something in that realm but everyone remembers what they were doing that morning. No matter where you're at, you remember it. And that's where we're going forward to today, is that you will remember the events going forward forever. You will remember where you were, when you saw, when you heard, when you experienced what is about to come. It will be that impressionable on the world, not just on America, not just on a country, but the entirety of the planet. And so, with that, Kelly, you got anything to add before we set this firecracker loose?
Oh, I just wanted to say how happy I am to be here with you all. And I always miss you guys when I don't get to see you and talk with you all. So, welcome everybody. We're in for a treat tonight. Lieutenant Colonel Bosi has some great things to share with us. So, buckle up.
Amen. So go ahead and do your share screen. And then once you get your share screen, then I'm going to set it up for how we're going to kind of be there or not be there or whatever, so that you can go through it.
Okay, let's get rolling.
All right. So we have that. It is up. Let me see if I can get, there we go. So can you see the document itself?
I'm looking, I can't see you or anybody else. I just see the actual presentation. So you can let me know when we're good to go.
Okay, so we're good to go. The document is there. It's on the screen beside us. We have us beside it. And then you can start talking about the national security strategy. So on the very first page.
Okay, thanks. Thanks, Captain. Ladies and gentlemen, quick intro to this document. Governments put out strategy documents all the time. They come thick and fast. They're like locusts, and most of them actually don't say much. In Australia, for example, we have our defence white papers, which will outline our security strategy, and it's generally cobbled together by half a dozen people who haven't got the ability to cooperate, and it's just a grab bag of silly ideas promoting special interests with no cohesive theme running through it. All they try to do it, but it's generally pretty second rate. This document here is probably the most important document to come out of any Trump White House anytime. There's a lot of things have been coming out, very important things. The EOs, for example, key, important, but they're like the small pieces of a jigsaw puzzle. And when you start putting all those EOs together, the picture starts to come out. And I haven't got time to do it today, but I'll be doing it in the new year. We'll be talking about this strategy, the EOs, and how DJT and his team have been showing you the direction. But the reason this is so profoundly important is it lays out the cohesive, coherent situation, what's got to be done, how it's going to be done. It's brilliant. So just as a technical document, government document, it is superb. It has a single author informed by many, many people, but it's got that coherence. It makes sense. And he's got into DJT's head and captured it brilliantly. Now, having said that, that's the technical side of this document. What the people of the United States have to recognize, and I'll be speaking to the US today predominantly, because as goes America, so goes the world. And what Donald Trump wants for America, he wants for the world. But this, I'll be addressing the American people directly today. And this document is a love letter from Donald. It really is. And that might sound like a strange analogy, but it truly is, excuse me, because the bottom line to this whole document is this. Donald Trump trusts you to save America. He's not going to do it for you. He and his team are establishing the conditions which will set you free to recreate that magnificent experiment in self-governance that was started 249 and a half years ago by your forefathers. This is now the next step. But this is his love letter to you. He trusts you to save America. And that's the only way it can be done. That innovation, that drive, that courage of the American people to do what's never been done before and do it so well that nobody can keep up. So here we go. That's the intro. Let's get into it. Now I'm going to show you this most. It's an easy read. It's not actually all that difficult or that long. It's a very easy read, and I strongly recommend everybody get a copy of this. You can get it online, go to the White House website, and put it by your bedside and read the thing. Because if you read this, the next weeks, months, and years will make sense. It'll be easier for you to get through some very difficult times. And you want to be the one with the answers to the questions. So if you read this document for yourself, process it, internalize it, understand it, read between the lines, see what he's doing, see what he wants for the country, see what he wants for you. These next days, weeks, months, and years will be a lot easier for you to navigate and then guide others through it. So please do that. So let's get into it. Here we go. It's in 4 parts. The introduction, what is American strategy? How American strategy went astray. President Trump's necessary welcome correction. Part 2, what should the United States want? That's a good question. What do we want overall? What do we want in and from the world? Because the world has a say. Part 3, what are America's available means to get what we want? And then the strategy itself, the principles, the priorities, and the regions. And the regions comprise the Western Hemisphere, Asia, Europe, the Middle East, and Africa. So there you go. That's the outline. Short, sharp, concise, meaningful. So let's go through it. Introduction. What is American strategy? How American strategy went astray. The purpose of foreign policy is the protection of core national interests. American elites convinced themselves that permanent American domination of the world was in the best interest of the country. Yet the affairs of other countries are only our concern, meaning the US, only if their activities directly threaten our interests. Our elites badly miscalculated America's willingness to shoulder forever global burdens to which Americans saw no connection to the national interest. They overestimated America's ability to fund simultaneously a massive welfare, regulatory, administrative state, alongside a massive military, diplomatic, intelligence, and foreign aid complex. They placed hugely misguided and destructive bets on globalism and so-called free trade that hollowed out the very middle class and industrial base on which American economic and military preeminence depend. And that was by design. We know that. They allowed allies and partners to offload the cost of their defense onto the American people and sometimes suck us into conflicts and controversies central to their interests, but peripheral or irrelevant to our own. And Australia did the same. And on behalf of the Australian people, I apologize to you. And they lashed American policy to a network of international institutions, some of which are driven by outright anti-Americanism, and many by a transnationalism that explicitly seek to dissolve individual state sovereignty. In sum, not only did our elites pursue a fundamentally undesirable and impossible goal, in doing so they undermined the very means necessary to achieve that goal. The character of our nation upon which its power, wealth, and decency were built. 2, President Trump's necessary welcome correction. President Trump's administration proved that with the right leadership, making the right choices above all of the above could and should have been avoided, and much else achieved. I couldn't agree more. Leadership, ladies and gentlemen, and it starts with mum and dad in the home. The questions before us now are, what should the United States want? What are our available means? And how can we connect ends and means into a viable national security strategy? Part 2, what should the United States want? What do we want overall? First and foremost, we want a continued survival and safety of the United States as an independent sovereign republic, whose government secures the God-given natural rights of its citizens and prioritizes their well-being and interests. We want to protect this country, its people, its territory, its economy, and its way of life from military attack and hostile foreign influence, whether espionage, predatory trade practices, drug and human trafficking, destructive propaganda and influence, operations, cultural subversion, or any other threat to our nation. We want full control over our borders, over our immigration system, and over our transportation networks through which people come into our country, legally and illegally. We want a world in which migration is not merely orderly, but one in which sovereign countries work together or stop rather than facilitate destabilization population flows, and have full control over whom they do and do not admit. We want a resilient national infrastructure that can withstand natural disasters, thwart foreign threats, and prevent or mitigate any events that might harm the American people or disrupt the American economy. No adversary or danger should be able to hold America at risk. We want to recruit, train, equip, and field the world's most powerful, lethal, and technologically advanced military to protect our interests, deter wars, and if necessary, win them quickly and decisively with the lowest possible casualties to our forces. And we want a military in which every single service member is proud of their country and confident in their mission. We want the world's most robust, credible, and modern nuclear deterrent, plus next-generation missile defenses, including a golden dome for the American homeland to protect the American people, American assets overseas, and American allies. We want the world's strongest, most dynamic, most innovative, most advanced economy. The US economy is the bedrock of the American way of life, which promises and delivers widespread and broad-based prosperity, creates upward mobility, and rewards hard work. Our economy is also the bedrock of our global position and the necessary foundation of our military. We want the world's most robust industrial base. American national power depends on a strong industrial sector capable of meeting both peacetime and wartime production demands. That requires not only direct defense industrial production capacity, but also defense-related production capacity. Cultivating American industrial strength must become the highest priority of national economic policy. We want the world's most robust, productive, and innovative energy sector, one capable not just of fueling American economic growth, but of being one of America's leading export industries in its own right. We want to remain the world's most scientifically and technologically advanced and innovative to build on these strengths. And we want to protect our intellectual property from foreign theft. America's pioneering spirit is a key pillar of our continued economic dominance and military superiority. It must be preserved. We want to maintain the United States' unrivaled soft power through which we exercise positive influence throughout the world that furthers our interests. In doing so, we will be unapologetic about our country's past and present, while respectful of other countries' differing religions, cultures, and governing systems. Soft power that serves America's true national interests is effective only if we believe in our country's inherent greatness and decency. What do we want overall? Finally, we want the restoration and reinvigoration of American spiritual and cultural health, without which long-term security is impossible. We want an America that cherishes its past glories and its heroes, and that looks forward to a new golden age. We want a people who are proud, happy, optimistic, that they will leave their country to the next generation better than they found it. We want a gainfully employed citizenry, with no one sitting on the sidelines, who take satisfaction from knowing that their work is essential to the prosperity of our nation and to the well-being of individuals and families. This cannot be accomplished without growing numbers of strong, traditional families that raise healthy children. What do we want in and from the world? Achieving these goals requires marshalling every resource of our national power. Yet this strategy's focus is foreign policy. What are America's core foreign policy interests? What do we want in and from the world? We want to ensure that the Western Hemisphere remains reasonably stable and well-governed, enough to prevent and discourage mass migration to the United States. And of course, the Western Hemisphere is the Americas. We want a hemisphere whose governments cooperate with us against narco-terrorists, cartels, and other transnational criminal organizations. We want a hemisphere that remains free of hostile foreign incursion or of key assets that supports critical supply chains. We want to ensure our continued access to key strategic locations. In other words, we will assert and enforce a Trump corollary to the Monroe Doctrine. And of course, you remember the Monroe Doctrine in 1823. President James Monroe determined that the Western Hemisphere, the Americas, was America's interest, and Europe should keep its nose out, and the US would keep its nose out of Europe. But now we have that plus the Trump corollary. We want to halt and reverse the ongoing damage that foreign actors inflict on the American economy, while keeping the Indo-Pacific free and open, preserving freedom of navigation in all crucial sea lanes, and maintaining secure and reliable supply chains and access to critical materials. We want to support our allies in preserving the freedom and security of Europe, while restoring Europe's civilizational self-confidence and Western identity. We want to prevent an adversary from dominating the Middle East, its oil and gas supplies, and the choke points through which they pass, while avoiding the forever wars that bogged us down in that region at great cost. And we want to ensure that US technology and US standards, particularly in AI, biotech, and quantum computing, drive the world forward. These are the United States' core vital national interests. While we also have others, these are the interests we must focus on above all others, and that which we ignore or neglect at our peril. 3, what are America's available means to get what we want? America retains the world's most enviable position with world-leading assets, resources, and advantages, including a still nimble political system that can course correct, the world's single largest and most innovative economy, which both generates wealth we can invest in strategic interests and provides leverage over countries that want access to our markets. The world's leading financial system and capital markets, including the dollar's global reserve currency status. The world's most advanced, most innovative, and most prophecy sector, which undergirds our economy, provides a qualitative edge to our military, and strengthens our global influence. The world's most powerful and capable military. A broad network of alliances with treaty allies and partners in the world's most strategically important regions. An enviable geography with abundant natural resources, no competing powers physically dominant in our hemisphere, borders at no risk of military invasion, and other great powers separated by vast oceans. Unmatched soft power and cultural influence. And the courage, willpower, and patriotism of the American people. In addition, through President Trump's robust domestic agenda, the United States is reinstilling a culture of competence, rooting out so-called DEI and other discriminatory and anti-competitive practices that degrade our institutions and hold us back. Unleashing our enormous energy production as a strategic priority to fuel growth and innovation and to bolster and rebuild the middle class. Excuse me. Reindustrializing our economy, again to further support the middle class and control our own supply chains and production capacities. Returning economic freedom to our citizens via historic tax cuts and deregulatory efforts, making the United States the premier place to do business and invest capital. And investing in emerging technologies and basic science to ensure our continued prosperity, competitive advantage, and military dominance for future generations. The goal of this strategy is to tie together all of these world-leading assets and others to strengthen American power and preeminence to make our country even greater than it ever has been. Part 4, the strategy. Principles. President Trump's foreign policy is pragmatic without being pragmatist, realistic without being realist, principled without being idealistic, muscular without being hawkish, and restrained without being dovish. It is not grounded in traditional political ideology. It is motivated above all by what works for America, or in 2 words, America first. President Trump has cemented his legacy as the president of peace, In addition to the remarkable success achieved during his first term with the historic Abraham Accords, President Trump has leveraged his deal-making ability to secure unprecedented peace in 8 conflicts throughout the world over the course of just 8 months of his second term. He negotiated peace between Cambodia and Thailand, Kosovo and Serbia, the DRC and Rwanda, Pakistan and India, Israel and Iran, Egypt and Ethiopia, Armenia and Azerbaijan, and ended the war in Gaza with all living hostages returned to their families. Stopping regional conflicts before they spiral into global wars that drag down the whole continents is worthy of the Commander-in-Chief's attention and a priority for his administration. A world on fire where wars come to our shores is bad for American interests. President Trump uses unconventional diplomacy, America's military might, and economic leverage to surgically extinguish embers of division between nuclear-capable nations and violent wars caused by centuries-long hatred. President Trump has proven that American foreign, defense, and intelligence policies must be driven by the following basic principles. Focused definition on national interests. Since at least the end of the Cold War, administrations have often published national security strategies that seek to expand the definition of America's national interests, such that almost no issue or endeavor is considered outside its scope. But to focus on everything is to focus on nothing. America's core national security interests shall be our focus. Peace through strength. Strength is the best deterrent. Countries or other actors sufficiently deterred from threatening American interests will not do so. In addition, strength can enable us to achieve peace because parties that respect our strength often seek our help and are receptive to our efforts to resolve conflicts and maintain peace. Therefore, the United States must maintain the strongest economy, the most advanced technologies, bolster our cultural health, and field the world's most capable military. A predisposition to non-interventionism. In the Declaration of Independence, America's founders laid down a clear preference for non-interventionism in the affairs of other nations and made clear the basis, just as all human beings possess God-given equal natural rights, all nations are entitled by the laws of nature and nature's God to a separate and equal station with respect to one another. For countries whose interests are as numerous and diverse as ours, rigid adherence to non-interventionism is not possible. Yet this predisposition should set a high bar for what constitutes a justified intervention. Flexible realism. US policy will not be realistic about what is possible and desirable to seek with other nations. Let me read that again. US policy will be realistic about what is possible and desirable to seek in its dealings with other nations. We seek good relations and peaceful commercial relations with the nations of the world without imposing on them democratic or other social change that differs widely from their traditions and histories. We recognize and affirm that there is nothing inconsistent or hypocritical in acting according to such a realistic assessment or in maintaining good relations with countries whose governing systems and societies differ from ours, even as we push like-minded friends to uphold our shared norms, furthering our interests as we do so. Primacy of nations. The world's fundamental political unit is and will remain the nation state. It is natural and just that all nations put their interests first and guard their sovereignty. The world works best when nations prioritize theirs. The United States will put our interests first and in our relations with other nations encourage them to prioritize their own interests as well. We stand for sovereign rights of nations against the sovereignty-sapping incursions of the most intrusive transnational organizations, and for reforming those institutions so they assist rather than hinder individual sovereignty and further American interests. Sovereignty and respect. The United States will unapologetically protect our own sovereignty. This includes preventing its erosion by transnational and international organizations, attempts by foreign powers or entities to censor our discourse or curtail our citizens' free speech rights. Lobbying and influence operations that seek to steer our policies or involve us in foreign conflicts, and in the cynical manipulation of our immigration system to build up voting blocs loyal to foreign interests within our country. The United States will chart our own course in the world and determine our own destiny, free of outside interference. Balance of power. The United States cannot allow any nation to become so dominant that it could threaten our interests. We will work with allies and partners to maintain global and regional balances of power to prevent the emergence of dominant adversaries. As the United States rejects the ill-fated concept of global domination for itself, we must prevent the global and in some cases even regional domination of others. This does not mean wasting blood and treasure to curtail the influence of all the world's great and middle powers. The outsized influence of larger, richer, and stronger nations is a timeless truth of international relations. This reality sometimes entails working with partners to thwart ambitions that threaten our joint interests. Pro-American worker. American policy will be pro-worker, not merely pro-growth, and it will prioritize our own workers. We must rebuild an economy in which prosperity is broadly based and widely shared, not concentrated at the top or localized in certain industries or in a few parts of the country. Fairness. From military alliances to trade relations and beyond, the United States will insist on being treated fairly by other countries. We will no longer tolerate and can no longer afford free riding, trade imbalances, predatory economic practices, and other impositions on our nation's historic goodwill that disadvantage our interests. As we want our allies to be rich and capable, our allies see that it is in their interest that the United States also remain rich and capable. In particular, we expect our allies to spend far more of their national gross domestic product on their own defense to start to make up for the enormous imbalances accrued over decades of much greater spending by the US. Competence and merit. American prosperity and security depend on the development and promotion of competence. Competence and merit are among our greatest civilizational advantages. Where the best Americans are hired, promoted, and honored, innovation and prosperity will follow. Should competence be destroyed or systematically discouraged, complex systems that we take for granted, from infrastructure to national security to education and to research, will cease to function. Should merit be smothered, America's historic advantages in science, technology, industry, defense, and innovation will evaporate. The success of radical ideologies that seek to replace competence and merit with favored group status would render America unrecognizable and unable to defend itself. At the same time, we cannot allow meritocracy to be used as a justification to open America's labor market to the world in the name of finding global talent that undercuts American workers. In our every principle and action, America and Americans must always come first. Priorities. The era of mass migration is over. Burden sharing and burden shifting. Realignment through peace. Economic security. Balanced trade. Securing access to critical supply chains and materials. Reindustrialization. Reviving our defense industrial base. Energy dominance. Preserving and growing America's financial sector dominance. Regions. The Western Hemisphere. The Trump corollary to the Monroe Doctrine. Enlist more allies and expand our influence. Asia. Win the economic future. Prevent military confrontation. Promoting European greatness. We want Europe to European. The Middle East. Shift burdens. Build peace. Africa. Trade and investment focused relationship. As you can see, the priorities in the regions I have much truncated, so I sincerely hope you will get the document for yourself and read those in more detail. Ladies and gentlemen, that is a very brief run through of the most important document to come out of any Trump White House. This is the love letter to the American people. He trusts you to save America. He and his team will establish the conditions that will allow you to become what you were created to be and to be part of the nation it was created to be. Okay, that's it, Captain. We're done.
That's absolutely awesome. And so there we go. And I without people understanding, this is about a policy that the United States hasn't had since the founding. And I don't even think that even under the founding documents and the founding fathers even took it as far as what that actual strategy actually talks about. Because basically everything that the colonial people that were here, basically they were going against the crown and the West Indies Trading Company. That's pretty much what they were up against, right? And having to deal with that kind of control and manipulation. And today, it's basically about the fleecing of America's talent, security, wealth, and abilities to fleece those and to turn the United States into a third world country for the few. This is all a part of the globalization and the domination of the elites. And this actually gave a finger to everything that they believed in, everything that they stood for, because this all changed in World War One. And basically after World War One, the United States was brought into actually funding the rehabilitation of the global economy. That's where everything started. And then we went into World War II. Then we had the Bretton Woods Agreement and all of that corruption. And they have played the long game to take us to where we're at today. And this is a clear, concise document that says everything that they believed in and that they brought forth over 150 years or more is over, period. And that's why it's so important, because it brings back actual sovereignty, not just to America, but to each and every country, and to stay out of the sovereign affairs of each and every country and respecting the sovereignty of each and every country. And that's what's so important about it, is that have you ever in your lifetime heard of a political leader telling another political leader that when we come into negotiations, you need to do what's best for your country and I'll do what's best for my country? It's always been about how can we manipulate this for our own benefit, meaning the politicians, and for the banking assets, and about the one world order and world government to push into that domain. Never. I don't think I've ever heard any document or read any document that has ever been this explicit in the individual sovereignty of each and every nation and how to respect it. And what you just put together was absolutely great. I think everyone should, do exactly as you said. Get it, read it, and understand what it truly means, because it actually means the separation of the New World Order completely. So where do you think that this takes us from here? You're muted.
This is the last piece of the Declaration of Independence. This is the means by which it'll now be achieved. You're exactly right, Captain. You've nailed it down. This is a seminal moment in US and global history. This moment in time, and I hope people on it, because there have been magnificent, both tragic and beneficial. The empire, the slow collapse from the Roman Empire, from the Republic to the empire and the age of the Caesars. You know, if you were there at that moment, you wouldn't have seen it. It was a slow decline, and then the empire became the Republic, it became the empire, and it was a transition. This is one of those moments in US history and therefore global history. And people look back at this moment right now. And that's why I said, if you download the document, read it, understand it, it'll get you through where you're going. And what it does is, for every other country on the planet, they should read that as well. Because in New York, I think it was the New York Times, when it first came out, described it as racist and white supremacist, a typical rubbish that comes out of that rag. It's anything but. Anything but. So, you know, once again, if you're still wanting to, please don't. Just don't. Read it for yourself, make up your own mind. God give you.
Yeah, if you don't have to, don't. Because it is so infected that it's just hard to actually even bear most of the time, even when you're having to watch it to try to get something out of it to show the changes that are actually happening, right? You know, it's like he said the same things in a different way whenever he addressed the UN several months ago, right? And talking about how each country that he was speaking to them directly that needed to end this mass migration, mass takeover, and to begin to bring sovereignty back into their own countries, and calling them out for exactly what they have done. It's like Europe right now. Yep. We want Europe to be European, and all of the blend of the nations. But right now, because of mass migration, it is the furthest from the truth of just that. Those cities in Paris and in Brussels and all these other, a lot of them are not safe to walk in at all. Because of the complete degradation of their rule of order and laws have just been completely upended. If you take and you import all of these third world ideologies and mindsets, do you think that all of a sudden when they get to another place that culture of that mindset of criminality and scamming and hostility and violence all of a sudden just drops to the side?
Yeah.
It's ludicrous. Absolutely crazy.
Donald Trump has done more in saying that he wants Europe to be for the Europeans. Which national leader in Europe has said anything even close up until recently? You've got Meloni in Italy and a few others, and Viktor Orban in Hungary. But for decades, we've had these puppets in you name it, every country in Europe basically handing over their sovereignty. And DJT turns up and says, hey, you should be for Europe. What a shocking notion. And he's already pulling, they said the headline is that Trump 4 countries from the EU. Well, no, he's not removing anything. What he's doing is he's going to set up a relationship with Italy, Austria, Hungary, and Poland, which will make it so advantageous to those countries that the rest of the EU is going to fall over. See, Trump doesn't force unless he needs to. Any good leader will persuade and attract rather than force. That's soft power. And that's what he's doing. And you watch Italy and Hungary and Poland over the next little while and watch the rest of the nations now follow suit. And dismantling the EU is a priority for Europe. Dismantling China, and here's an interesting one for you, because there are regions in China that are seeking their own self-determination under a Chinese umbrella, but they want their own. They want a degree of limited self-governance. And this is actually in a lot needs to be achieved, because China in its current form is a danger to the planet, economically, militarily, culturally. We know that. And if you've got a second, Captain, I've got a couple of slides here to give people a quick Soldiers 5 on China to see how it actually might be reorganized with consent. Please understand this, ladies and gentlemen, with consent of the people. And let me just say this, because when I looked at the possibilities, and I thought, okay, China needs
And
to be
that's right,
dismantled.
because we've talked about this in the past, that each of these countries are going to internally fight for their own sovereignty and actually start to self-govern themselves. And this is all a part of the process that we've been going through here, right?
Yep. Yeah, show you this. I'm just sharing screen again. Let me know when you've got
it up.
North China.
Yep, the North China plan.
There you go. There's China. Now let's just go through it. This is just the source of this is Mr. Z at Monsieur Dean, so appropriately attributed. But have a look at this. There's the North China plain. Mostly Han in terms of their ethnicity, powerful, but their economy. Let's just talk economy, because there are other aspects to it. But their power and agriculture is their strength. And there's the North China plain. Then you move to South China, manufacturing, technology, and trade. Extraordinarily different terrain. Then you have Tibet, agriculture, hydropower, and it's very mineral rich. Then you've got East Turkestan, it's uninhabitable. Resource extraction, solar power generation, and heavy industry. Tough place to be. And in a greater Inner Mongolia, rare earth minerals and coal. So there's a behemoth that needs dismantling, not because we think so, but because there are people within these regions that have a strong connection to China, without a doubt. And as I said, it's got to be done by consent. But this is part of the process, the how. Well, how do you break that China? Well, allow them to decide for themselves to determine what level of self-governance they want within their country. And then we get the Chinese looking after its people rather than using them as a slave state to challenge the rest of the world. So this is good for the Chinese people, China for China's. Not Chinese, not the Chinese people for the clique that runs the organization. But anyway, that's a quick look at China and how the future might come about.
And
in a country like China.
My understanding is that President Xi is intentionally falling on the CCP sword to take that country to where it needs to go to, intentionally, so that this very thing, out of the love of his nation, will actually break it apart, like what we're talking about here, but will all be under the same umbrella, but within their own sovereignty of self-governance, right? In time, not immediately, but in time, because they don't know any different. It has to be learned.
Yep.
And this is
correct.
Yeah.
And you can imagine the black hats in China, how tough it'd be to dismantle that. That's where President Xi is doing a great job dismantling that same power structure within his own borders to set his own people free. That's what's on offer for him. He can either go down in history as an irrelevant tyrant and that set his country free.
Yeah, and we know that he's been working with Trump and the other alliances, and that's what they've been doing. And everything that's happened has happened for a reason, and he's got to bring the country to its knees so that they can actually stand up for their own sovereignty and then learn what sovereignty means. Because I was even talking to my wife about it earlier, about sovereignty, and nobody understands truly what sovereignty is. And then when you do finally start to get what sovereignty means, you start to lead. You start to take control of your own life, your own destiny, your own thoughts, your own abilities. And you don't sit there and wait for someone else to tell you, wait for someone else to show you. You lead by your own examples. And that's the whole thing. People still, to this day, are still waiting to be told what to do, how to do it, when to do it, and if this is okay or not, and seeking that approval of whether or not they're on the right track, right? And there's the few that does not seek outside influence for validation, and we've taken all kinds of abuse and beatings for it, but that's okay, because the hardest is the ground that needs to be tilled the first time is always the worst.
Yep.
And that's where we've
Absolutely
been.
true. Yep.
And
Okay,
I
and
stand
guys-
shoulder to shoulder with all you guys in that aspect, and will always. So,
John, Captain, I've got one more thing just to throw up if I can very quickly. Here's another document that I mentioned on a couple of podcasts I've done recently. Conspirators Hierarchy, the story of the Committee of 300. Now, this document, it's a longer read, but if you like a good spy novel with intrigue, corrupt government officials, spies, murders, you name it, this is it, but it's not a novel. This is the history of the organization.
That sounds like every government around the world.
That's exactly right. It's not a novel. It's actually the history of the organization that has been running the planet for the longest possible time. And again, this is worth reading, not only because it's a compelling story. In fact, the A1 people have been getting back to me recently saying, I'm reading the book, I'm on page 28. My God, I had no idea how bad it was. And it's shocking in its revelations. But if you read this book, ladies and gentlemen, Trump's love letter is one, and that's a quick read and internalize that. But if you want to know what they've been fighting against, why it's taken so long, why everything has been dragged out, why you have to show people instead of telling them, you must read this book and understand the nature of our adversary, which has been gargantuan. It's just the most incredible story. And then when they say it'll be the greatest story ever told, that's not an understatement. This has been the most incredible war of all sorts. But get this, you can download it. Go to the CIA website. They actually have it available there. But get it, download it, read it. And again, that will assist you in understanding what's been happening. And then the national security strategy will assist you in understanding where we're going. And they're two important books right now. So if you've got some Christmas reading, that's it. Come back in the new year. You'll be full bottle, ready to go. And you can take on whatever the world throws at you. But thanks for indulging that, Captain.
No, I agree 100%. And Kelly, do you want to go with some questions for our esteemed guest?
Yeah. Pull them up. Okay. All right. Dennis asks, it has been said that the ISO 20022 has been put in place, which is supposed to be a positive step for full implementation of the new QFS financial system and eventually RV. Do you think this is a true statement?
Yeah, it actually has already been implemented. That's the framework for the transaction for cross-border transactions. So it has actually already gone into effect.
Okay, and then it looks like somebody on X is asking, can you type out the title because it was backwards? Yeah. So when you held up the book, Rick, it was backwards. So if you could send me,
Okay.
DM me that title, I'll post it for everyone.
I'll do better. I'll do better than that, Kelly. I'll just quickly put it up. Let me share screen again, and you'll get the title there.
Okay, wonderful.
Okay, tell me when you can see that.
There you go. It's up.
Okay, there you go, Kelsey girl. We put it up on the screen for you.
And you can get it from the CIA's website.
Awesome. Thank you.
And when you get that book, have a look at this map here. You'll see the spider web of control. British East India Company, the UN, all its subsidiaries, the NRO, MI6, British intelligence, which established Mossad and CIA, the Anti-Defamation League under their control, Bilderberg Group, the Round Table, heavy lifters, the Royal Institute for International Affairs. These are big names. The Rand Club of Rome, Kissinger, his role in various activities, including threatening the Italian Prime Minister Aldo Moro and then having him assassinated when he wouldn't play the game. Ladies and gentlemen, you've got to read this. This is your Christmas reading. But have a strong drink or a glass of lemonade, depending on your tastes, because it's amazing. Anyway, there you go.
You know, it's funny
I hope
because
that helps.
a lot of those, that's what I said in the very beginning, that the colonial, our forefathers were actually dealing with specifically in the very beginning of why they wanted separation and their abilities to have our own country and our own ability to govern ourselves and not have taxation without representation. And how much more true could that be today? Taxation without representation. They tax you for absolutely everything, even all of the hidden taxes that you have no idea. You pay about 75% tax, and they actually went to war for less than 2%.
Okay, y'all. I also just,
Yeah, the numbers
I'm sorry, I took a screenshot. I mean, I took a picture of it and just posted it on Captain's Wall as well for anyone that missed it.
Awesome.
Go ahead.
What were you saying, Lieutenant Colonel?
I would say the tax numbers here are very similar in Australia. People think they're paying a marginal rate of somewhere between sort of 33 cents in the dollar plus or minus. But when you add the sales tax and all the other bits and pieces that the government imposes upon you, land tax, payroll tax, capital gains tax, you name it, people are actually paying in Oz 70%. So the numbers are very similar, and people wonder why they can't get ahead. That's why you're being shorn like sheep and milked like cows.
Because there's all
and
kinds of
interesting-
hidden taxes that they put in: alcohol, cigarettes, gasoline. All of these things have all these hidden taxes in. So when you start to understand just how much you're paying in taxes and all the hidden taxes, you are being fleeced beyond your understanding. And so when we finally get rid of all of that crap and actually go to a national sales tax and get rid of all the other tax crap, it's only on consumption, then it's going to change your reality completely. Even if it's 15%, it will change everything completely.
Yeah, the average punter out there is going to have more money than they know what to do with.
Yeah.
It'd be quite possible for a single parent to be the breadwinner, and then the children get what they need, which is a parent at home 24/7. Mum or dad makes no difference. That's your business. But that's exactly the point. And I love this. I love the way that the strategy explicitly states at the tail end of it. You know, all this strategy is focused like a laser on traditional families and healthy children, because without that, forget it. The rest of the strategy means nothing. We as policymakers for our nations must remember that if it's not good for the family, it's not good for the country. And it's as simple as that. It truly is. It's got to support the mother, the father of a traditional family and healthy children. And if it does that, that's the first hurdle. Then you can start talking about what else we need to do for the country. If it doesn't support them, you can't have it.
So, you know, we saw that generation. We were in the generation when that ended. So we saw it. That's what we first experienced, right? Our parents, we lived on a single income. And then we saw where as we got to be teenagers and just outside of being teenagers, it was almost impossible for a single breadwinner to make enough money. Mom and dad both ended up having to go to work. And then that's where we started to become latchkey kids, and that there was no one there to take care of us. We took care of ourselves, and we grew up with those responsibilities as the 70s generation, right? Which was absolutely nuts, to the point where the news at 6 o'clock used to say, "Do you know where your kids are at?"
Oh, yeah.
And at 10 o'clock in the late night news, they would tell, that would be one of the things they would say, "Do you know where your kids are at?" Just to remind the parents of that they got kids, and do you know where they're at? It was absolutely nuts. But we saw it, we experienced it, and how that burden kept getting more and more, and how they continually took more and more and put more load on the stresses of the family, to where even then two members of the family weren't enough, and that it continually started going down this debt cycle hole of not being able to work enough, not being able to make enough, never being able to get out of the cycle of debt, and always creating more and more chaos and separation within the family structure. And then they broke out with the whole, we're going to completely decimate the nuclear family because we don't believe in it at all, and started to disrupt it completely from within the school systems. Totally crazy. But we saw it, we experienced it, we lived that. And it's good to know that that is the focal point of restoration, because that's where we have to restore and bring our kids up in the ways that are healthy and fundamental.
Okay. The next question is for Ian. It's a question for Lieutenant Colonel Rick and Captain Kyle, if he would care to comment. Is there going to be individual state constitutions in Australia? Will they need to be in place prior to the Constitution for Constitutional Republic of Australia? And will they also need to be constitutional republics / commonwealths so as to cohere with the national constitution? Thank you, Captain Kelly and Lieutenant Rick, for your service to we the people of the planet, from an Aussie observer.
That's a great question, and it's a very important question. Where do the constitutions come in? The sequencing is going to be a bit interesting, but you can trust it this way. Our counties will be more powerful than US counties, for starters. They're going to have more power. We need to have as much political power, real political power, decision-making at the lowest possible level, to obviate the possibility of states or federal encroaching onto the citizens, or not the citizens, the people of Australia, their natural rights. So there'll be constitutions for the counties, there'll be constitutions for the states, and a constitution for the federal government. Now, there'll be a slight overlap at times, because there are issues where there are joint interests. The federal government will have an interest in it, and so will the state. It's not complex, it's just an area of overlap. What we want to avoid is gaps between the constitutions. So they must be constructed intelligently, so there's a little bit of overlap, but certainly no gaps in terms of responsibility, because that's where the bad guys duck in that gap and exploit it to their advantage. But they will be integrated. The federal constitution will supersede state constitutions where necessary. If there's a conflict between the federal constitution, the state constitution, federal constitution wins. That's the current law in Australia anyway. But it's a great question. And this is why we are trying in Oz. We're getting people to understand what it makes a good constitution, and what constitution is likely to best deliver what it is that we wish, which is a moral, sovereign, self-reliant Christian Western constitutional republic, which is economically powerful, militarily intimidating, politically free, culturally vibrant, and socially cohesive. So that's our end state. And you can't argue against any of that. It makes sense. You want to be a moral people? Immoral. Okay, let's be moral. What does that mean? Well, we agree what's right and wrong. Well, now you can start to see we derive from ideas like that the foundation of a constitution which will deliver this end state to the people. But that has to be replicated at its appropriate level for counties, very powerful counties, very powerful, and not constrained, for example, by funding from the state, because the state can screw a county over by just pulling the plug, turning off the spigot. Can't do it that way. So funding's got to allow the people to govern themselves at a county level, then a state, then a federal level. It's going to be glorious. It's going to be hard work, and we will make mistakes. We will make mistakes. It'll be lumpy. But these are the birth pains of a new constitutional republic. I love it, and we've got the best example to follow, not slavishly, because there's a few changes. We're not going to be copying the US Constitution identically. We'll be going our own way to an extent, but we're certainly the founding fathers of the US their shoulders as we design the constitutions for Australia.
And that's the way it originally was the federal, state, and the county. And the county sheriff basically had as much power as the governor did within his jurisdiction. I mean, he can call out the National Guard without asking for anything within his county. And so that kind of power is very, very important for the people that live within that community, and to have that kind of structure. That was all superseded when they went into these corporations and when they went into the corporate construct. Basically, it all went up to the federal level. Basically, it was all incorporated under the incorporate doctrines of the incorporation of the United States. And so that all had to be replaced. That all has to go back to its fundamental core beliefs, back the same way as the real Constitution and each state constitution, where they have control over their own affairs, and that the government has its own role to play in the protection and sovereignty, commerce, and the foreign relation parts of the country. States govern themselves, so to speak, and counties govern themselves even more to that individual county. And so this is all something that's having to be put back in place, put back in order, and each state has its own fundamental constitution and its House of Representatives. House, Senate, same thing. It's just on the state doctrinal level. But we have to get away from this corporate construct and back to the fundamentals, where the people are actually the ones in charge and not the corporations.
Okay. Well, thank you, fellas, for that. I also posted your link for AustraliaOne Party, so because there's a free download there. I believe your wife is on Rumble. She said that. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Good.
So the Commonwealth, though, and the Commonwealth Doctrine and all that crap, that's all part of the crown, all part of the colonial bullshit that's all get thrown in the garbage. Just for your information.
Okay, the next question. Hi, Captain Kyle Kelly, Lieutenant Colonel Bosi. I would like to ask more detail on strawman account. I know most of it, but the only thing I have not heard or read is who actually opened these accounts and put the money in it, and why. Was it supposed to always benefit us or the bad guys? Will we still have these accounts, or what were they closed down 10 years ago? And that is why Trump is opening up accounts for children 10 years of age and younger.
No, they've never been closed. They don't have the ability to close an account that they're only a beneficiary of. So the strawman account is basically between your bonds and your CISA account, basically your QV account. Those are all funded by the financial institutions at birth on purpose for the wealth development of a country. They've been funding countries like this since the 1600s. Go back and look at the first, it may even been before that. I think it was like 14 something that the first initial QV accounts or CISA accounts were ever actually implemented on it's basically a sovereign wealth fund for a nation from birth, and that you as a individual are a part of that. But when they set it up to where you don't know about it, and that you are a part of the development of that nation, well, when you don't know about something and you are a beneficiary of it, but then you never claim it, then the other beneficiary steps in and has all of those actual benefits. So they're funding it on the false assumption that you will never, ever claim it, and they'll have complete control and access over it. And that's what they've been doing forever. But now that people know about those things and about knowing about the straw man, how the straw man system works, then you're still a beneficiary, the main beneficiary of that account, but you've been considered lost or dead at sea. But when you make an appearance back on land, then that beneficiary now reestablishes it back to you. This is something that we've been working with Robert and with reestablishing the jurisdiction of the North Americas, and about bringing people, the sovereign people, back onto shore. It's important.
Okay. Here's one from Rumble. I was listening to another channel and they brought up Canada being the 51st state. Wouldn't it be more feasible to have each province be a single state instead of a whole country being one?
That's just a representation of the 51st state. It would actually be a separation like that. It's actually the North Americas.
Okay, and then Dottie asks, what happens to Hawaii and the U.S.? What happens to non-citizens in Hawaii?
So, in my understanding, that the Hawaiians are going to regain their sovereignty and then be put back into it's the I can't even remember, but it's not going to be like America like we think it is, but they're still going to be under the umbrella of Americas, but they're going to have their complete sovereignty. I mean, we've talked about it many times here that we believe the same thing's going to happen with Australia, because actually Australia is owned by America, whether they realize it or not, just like it was owned by the Crown for so long. Well, that being owned by the Americas, that if you still gain your sovereignty, but you're under the umbrella of America, then what's the difference of having a state and having complete sovereignty, and it's the way it was supposed to be, and a complete control, but over your country, but just under the umbrella protection of the Americas? I don't think there's any much difference to any of that, because you're not going to lose your identity. You're still going to be Australian. That'll never change. So don't think it's not, just because it changes from American Australian. That don't even sound right. Who gives a shit? Doesn't matter. It's that's your heritage, and that's never going to change. Doesn't matter what the umbrella you put up over it to facilitate the headship. It's been under the Crown for how long? But not really.
So, speaking of the Crown, what did you think of the Deep Staters meeting in London recently?
So
They trying to figure out what the heck to do.
yes, because this document freaked the shit out of them. And the other part of that is that they just brought in, because they had they need the big bad wolf, which is Russia, and Trump has gone completely around them, established a relationship with Russia publicly, and said that we're not going to treat them as the big bad bear like everybody else is, and that they need to actually end this war. And Zelensky has no other choice but to end this war. But then he goes to Downing Street, comes out of Downing Street, and says, "Oh no, we can't follow these things. There's going to be new issues that have to be done." And it's the globalist that are a part of that colonial structure that can't give up the power that's what they're up against right now. The warmongers and trying to keep this perpetual power in operation. And it's slowly bleeding the fuck out on the world stage.
So who actually lives there, Captain? Like, who are they visiting?
Downing Street, that's actually the prime minister's.
The Prime Minister.
So what do you say, Lieutenant Colonel?
I shake my head at that one because I'm trying to figure out how many actors are there, what they're talking
Yeah,
about, what
because Obama
what
showed
part.
up first, right? What was it, like a month or so ago? And then we even saw Mike, remember Kansas? What's his last name? He was the state Mike, oh gosh, I can't believe I can't remember his name. He was really a big guy and then he lost a lot of weight. You know who I'm talking about, Captain? He was the head of Department of State for Trump in the first one.
Oh,
Pompeo.
yeah.
Pompeo was seen there next after Obama. And then the other day it was Macron, uh, Zelensky, and I forget who else. But yeah, it's been interesting watching these actors coming and going from there.
It's look, it's a show for the normies, and just we can't call them normies anymore. What did Derek call them? The target audience. Okay, the target audience. It's a movie for the target audience. But what we've calculated here in Oz, that if you're looking for a metaphor for what this has been like, it's like if you get a sieve, and depending on the size of the rock, it'll go through certain levels. You know, those sieves with different size holes for different size rocks, and bit by bit, but the finer ones go through first, and then you're left with these. We call them bundies in Australia. These big rocks that just won't fit through. They're the ones that are just refusing to, or can't accept what's going on, whether because they're financially blinded by it or they can't admit the errors they have made in terms of jabbing their kids. The trouble is, I shouldn't say kids, children. 80% of the people know something's wrong. They've worked it out. That doesn't mean they're on board to do anything, but the penny's finally dropped and they know 80% know something is wrong. And they're in that difficult position. There's 20% that just won't. And the 80% who now are awake to what's going on, apart from us that have been here for some time, they are having great difficulty dealing with the 20% that won't listen. They're going through the same problem we went through years ago, trying to persuade people what the truth is. And then now that they're waking up, they're saying, look, I think there might be a problem with, and they could mean any subject in that discussion. And they're stuck with this 20% that won't move. And there's a lot of anguish, a lot of emotion out there at the moment because they are frightened and frustrated simultaneously. And so this movie is still being played for them, basically. The other groups, part of that 80%, the 20% are people like military and police in Australia. If they visit the wrong website on social media, they get dragged into the boss's office and get recalibrated pretty energetically and sacked maybe. So it's a very tough emotional journey as they are now working their way through to the truth. It's and what's making it harder for them is we recently put out 2 interviews, A1 interviews with a guy called Rob G, about, it's called My Town. I'll show you My Town, and then part 2 was My Pedo Town. And he went to jail for I think 9 months on false charges while he's trying to protect a girl who was being sexually abused by her New South Wales police detective father. 62 offences, and he basically saved a life. They arrested him, threw him in jail for 9 months. And what's interesting, he went to jail, and when he got there, the Crims all obviously want to find out who's who in the zoo, what's this guy in for. And when they found out he went to jail for protecting victims of child sex trafficking at the hands of the police, the toughest crims in the prison were protecting him because he was one of the good guys, and he found that there were many, many fathers in there that were in prison for protecting their traffic to children. And what he revealed, and he gave names and dates and places, and I mean a list. There's these 2 shows, you can go through them, of names and dates and places of the police and the lawyers and the real estate agents and you name it, doesn't matter who they are. They're all into child sex. This is the police and the judges and the politicians. Child sex trafficking, ice manufacture, distribution, you name it, they're into it. And he gave name. Now, this thing is taken off like a rocket in Australia and internationally. He is getting phone calls from everywhere. And what it's done, his action, this brave man has cracked the damn wall, and it's about to come down because other people are now calling him up saying, we're a couple of cops from the town of X. We need your help because we've been trying to fight this as well. And so you've got good cops and bad cops, but the entire system, and I said this the other night, the entire fabric of the polity, the judiciary, the bureaucracy, the constabulary, and the military is Masonic. This whole country, literally, this is not a statement of hyperbole. It's not an overstatement. The very fabric of this country is Masonic filth. That's why you've got no police anywhere doing anything other than some copper on $90,000 a year who owns 3 or 4 multi-million-dollar properties on the beachfront, and they don't care. Their own children, they're trafficking them to others, and more and more names are coming out. And so you've got this back to the start point. There's 80% that are waking up, and 20% that won't, and people are getting very agitated. Very emotional. It's a tough journey that they're on. So this is the group, and I said some of us are going to have a good Christmas, and others not so great. That's what here. It's an extraordinary challenge for them. So there you go. It's happening, ladies and gentlemen. It's happening fast. And if you want to watch those videos, you can go to our AustraliaOne Party Rumble page and have a look at the Rob G interviews. There was this, and I'm not encouraging this, but there was a pedophile. He'd sell the young girls, children. He'd get them out on ice, and then he'd photograph them and other things. It's basically a pedo. This is before Rob G spoke. A number of them got together and decided that's enough, and they stabbed him to death. And I can promise you, nobody shed a single tear. Now, I'm not encouraging vigilantism, and I'm not encouraging violence, but some people just don't deserve to be on the planet anymore. And there's this real undercurrent of fury bubbling away in Oz because they have finally found out this entire country, there isn't a police station on the planet. I actually said it, that what he described in the area of the Shoalhaven where he lives, that's a region on the south coast of New South Wales, it's one of our states. What he described is replicated in every town, in this entire nation, because we've had stories from everywhere. Townsville up north. Townsville is a city, it's a large regional city in the north of Queensland, very, very tip. That's where coppers kill coppers. They kill judges. They run the show. They produce the drugs. They get the entire town of Townsville on drugs. They're all selling ice. Every police force in this country is rotten because every police force in this country is run by Masons. You don't get above constable if you're not a Mason. It's pretty straightforward. People are now finding out. It's just too much for some of them to bear. So there you go. That's just a quick.
We've talked about
wanted to get that update.
We've talked about this many times, that the things that are going to be revealed to people, and when it happens, these people won't be able to walk the streets. But not only that, but what has happened to our children is going to heal the countries all back together, and what they're separated, because we can all come in agreement on protecting our children once they finally truly know, right? Not that they just think it might be something and they don't know, because too many people have in the past been, yeah, but it's not that bad, right? How many times have we heard that? But it is that bad and way worse. And when they finally get exposed to it, it causes them major distress. And those things we've been going through for a long time, the rest of the population, the targeted people now are experiencing those things we've experienced over years and years and years. And that's what's so important for us to be there to support them, because they don't know how to process this in the time that they're processing it. Because we did it over a long period of time, they're doing it really quickly. And it's overwhelming, and it can be. And so always walk in love with people as they awaken to these criminal acts that have been going on for a long time, because they, even though it's been hard, even though they've did all these negative things to us and basically kicked us to the curb, doesn't matter. They were just in delusion, just as you were 25 or 30 years ago. Doesn't matter.
Yep.
So well, sir, it's been a wonderful evening and a wonderful day to you there. I always enjoy it. That was a great presentation that you made earlier, and I think it is very important because it does direct sovereignty back to each nation. Very important. And this is how we begin to operate in our true power as sovereign beings. And
Yeah, and a good point to make about sovereignty is that along with sovereignty that we are all craving comes great responsibility.
Yep, for all of your own actions. So with that, I love you guys. It's been great, and we'll talk to you soon, sir.
Yes,
Good
we
night,
love
everybody.
you all. Thank you.
Thanks, Captain. Thanks, Kelly.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
everyone.
Good night, everyone.